Hi, my name's Aniruddha, aka Dr. Das.
Hi, I'm Steve Chandra Savaleand, aka Chandra Sonic. I'm here to talk about Rafi's Revenge.
This one's called Naturalite.
If you could slam it inside a genre and say, oh, well, that was the music of the time or what have you, then you could be nostalgic. I can't be nostalgic about it because I think it's still an interesting mix-up.
The places we moved in, whether it's physical or in terms of culture and music, jungle was omnipresent. It was astounding. We weren't part of the movement that was trying to gentrify jungle into drum and bass.
Yeah, drum and bass had progressed by 1998, but it had gone more towards jazz and a more sophisticated thing. He kind of almost pulled it back and made it even grittier.
What preceded jungle was something called hardcore, which was like a progression from a few years before, from the acid house getting faster and faster, probably as the drugs were changing, I don't know. And it just sounded Mickey Mouse, I mean, because it had been sped up. I'm running workshops in community music. The young people coming in with these cassettes they've recorded off their pirate stations had this thing called jungle. And the first time I got it actually was when I was driving from a workshop back to community music in the little red Suzuki van. And this bad boy pulled up in a little black Fiesta, thumping sound system. And I heard these machine gun snares, but I heard a sound in there that I'd never heard in the context of those snares before, and it was a half-speed reggae bass line, and then suddenly it all clicked. Everything made sense.
Some of the lines in Jungle were so like nasty, they could have been almost a heavy metal riff, but obviously with rhythm. But it's great to hear that sound and those kind of intervals over this really fast, wild drums, but playing reggae with a distorted bass sound. And I have to say that the sound of the bass, that love of distortion, it had punk, it had rock in it even, do you know what I mean? It's incredible. In a way, it was just like the unity of so much music, you know. You can almost hear the entire history of music in Jungle up to that point, you know. You really could.
And that was the period as well when the core programming team shifted to Chandra Sonic and Didar. And not many people know that Didar was actually super talented jungle producer.
Fantastic.
Or I used to call him Driller Killer. Didar was there right at the beginning. He was one of the young Asian people that came to do a workshop that happened in the summer of '93. And actually Pandit Ji was involved in the organisation of that. So that's how I met Pandit Ji as well. Didar, myself and Pandit Ji, we just said we've got a lot of things to say lyrically and musically as well, and let's just carry on working together.
I think we've always never liked just being this description of a political band, right? But that said, we don't mind talking about politics. They're two very different things.
We were involved in the poetry and spoken word scenes, and then at a certain point we made that transition to Asian Dub Foundation. I think before a certain anti-racist gig, word got out amongst those people, amongst those activists. Pandit Ji came up with that name just in time to put it on the poster, and it stuck.
I mean, I don't think we ever saw that side of us as being particularly unusual, because as far as we were concerned, music has always been about communication, about real events, real areas for investigation. That's what Rafi stands for, you know. That's as old as the hills. Music and song used to be the way to spread the news. There's nothing unusual about that. So that annoyed us a bit, that somehow we were somehow pigeonholed or stuck out as this thing, you know, as if it's some kind of like unusual thing. For us, it's not, you know. Malcolm McLaren has a lot to answer for, I think, because of the idea of like literally getting in a back room and saying, well, what can we invent that's going to make our name? You really got a sense at the time that the music press and the music industry was not about music. You know, it wasn't about whether anything was any good or not. It was all this strange kind of reduced journalistic mind of what's in, what's out, what's relevant, what's irrelevant. These kind of superficial terms, you know. We got a sense that the British press wouldn't really take an interest in us unless something happened that was not musical. As it happened for us, it was the primal scream taking interest in us that actually got them all wagging. You know, it wasn't the sound of the band initially.
We learnt literally on stage, on the road. We learnt how to throw energy back.
I think that was it, really. I mean, the band was, the stuff started sounding so hot after being played on the road because they felt, once we'd started playing them a lot, that they were built for live and they were improving radically.
We were maintaining that energy, that grit, that roughness, the liveness of it.
I mean, it was quite an unusual sound that I think came to fruition. It felt like a normal sound. I mean, you never had live electric guitar on top of jungle. Really. It didn't happen. Well, you didn't really have live bass, did you? Really? You know.
There was no rules.
No, not at all. I had a small amp, and I had a cheap guitar, and I had a quadriverb effects unit, and really the sound is fantastic. And I like the idea. I mean, it felt like, you know, I was taking the mick a bit, but there was actually a serious idea behind it that in order to play respectfully and excitingly, along with something like jungle, heavy bass lines and programmed beats, you have to rethink the guitar. Yeah, you know, so I viewed the guitar as a rhythm instrument, as a noise generator, as a sampler. And I tried to have this, create this alternative mentality.
It was about what I think the French started calling jungle punk.
Well, we used to have a leaflet, actually. We made a leaflet of us advertising our first album, and we put the real Britpop underneath it.
Oh.
You remember that?
No, but it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I still maintain it's the worst thing that happened to British music. It's the first time that something happened in British music which looked backwards rather than forwards. You think about it, my gosh, you know, rock and roll and the 60s beat boom, psychedelia, punk rock, post-punk, acid house, jungle, you know.
And then Britpop let us down.
Rewriting Ray Davies songs. After all that history.
Horrific.
Something wrong there. Yeah, Black White is basically a love song written by Dida for his girlfriend of the time, Janine, hence the first opening line, J&D here has united.
J&D here has united, black and white here to show you how we've been delighted. The new generation, it's the mid-90s, showing you how it's done if you think you are a smarty.
I think it's a wonderful lyric. It's a 16-year-old writing directly from his heart, his experience. And it was still a big deal for him, you know, to be going out with a white girl in Forest Gate, you know, and obviously a big deal enough for him to write about it. You know. I find it very moving to listen to. I think it's very beautiful.
Hey.
Well, Dida and Oni wrote the lyrics to that, and they really are fantastic lyrics.
This is actually conceived as an anti-slacker anthem, I mean anti-laziness. I was sat in the studio with Dida and we were watching this fly, and I said, look, that fly's got only, I don't know how many, 5-6 days to live. That's its lifespan, so it's got to fit a lot of work into that. So we're just talking about that, and that's how you got the lyrics. I can't live my life with no rhythm or rhyme. I've done enough chilling, gonna organise my time. I ain't standing still, just watch me now. I've got a lifetime to fill. I'm buzzing, you know. And like, when did I go, like a fly in the sky forever, but, you know, whatever. It all came out of watching this fly.
You know, we're not really the sort of band that normally kind of looks back at things like that, but, you know, maybe it's time we allowed ourselves to a bit. It's still very proud of it. It's set off a lot in me. You know, in looking for sort of like old DATs and stuff that might have interesting bonus and stuff, I found a whole load of stuff, especially live recordings from that time, and I was blown away to hear them again. You know, I haven't listened to them, you know, probably since we did them. And I just saw this as a really interesting band, you know, and it is, It sounds unique. Yeah, it's got contemporary music in it, but it sounds like we had our own take on things, and I'm very proud of that.
When I heard these remasters, it was almost as good as a remix or a rebalance of the sound. It was amazing. It sounded tough.
If you listen to that album, there's lots of stuff which might not even sound like a guitar. You know, lots of stuff that is designed to help the drum and bass, that actually says the guitar is less than the drum and bass. What's really interesting about it is that, you know, a lot of packages these days, you get sort of like early developments of the tracks and stuff like that. I find that fascinating. I never considered applying that to us. But I'm really happy that that's going on, you know, to earlier versions that sort of like chart the development of a track, you know. I find that fascinating myself to listen to.
I would like to introduce John Bandit, because John Bandit was one of the 3 founder members of ADF, so myself, Didar and John Bandit. His musical contribution to the band is often overlooked. John was the DJ, turntablist. He consistently came up with the most wicked sounds that would complete the composition.
That's right, they would always complete it. That was it. It was like one thing, this like a little... This
the icing on the cake, to use that cliche, but his sounds were anything but. What he did were these fantastic inserts between the tracks, these ambient sounds or these rhythms, and sometimes he'd be really taken with them, we'd start playing along to them.
Yeah, they'd often become other tracks.
I was only on the decks because I think you could only load one program at a time.
Something like that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? We didn't have that, the technology hadn't advanced. You had to load up the S950 and get the floppy disks out. So you needed something for us to make it flow. It was about what you had available and how you made it into something else. I remember going to an early electro thing that was on one of those Morgan Carn LPs, Street Sounds, and they were just DJs playing. We didn't realise, that was the gig. Oh, right. Okay. For us, this was hearing electronic music in something that was attempting to be a live situation, and what ADF did was perhaps take that to another level and blur the distinction.
That's right. Yeah, it's really true. As a build-up to Rafi's Revenge, those gigs that we did in 96, 97, they weren't the rock gig format at all. Yeah, you'd have the band, you would have yourself starting it off, then in between the tracks, then there would be a DJ thing, and then often it would go on, especially in France, it would go on, and people from the audience would actually take part. You know, sax players, or people dancing, or people getting up on the mic, and it would go on for 3 or 4 hours.
And it was like, suddenly this became theatre, it moved it on, and once you'd created that space, you could do all these kind of things. It was lovely.
Everybody contributed to the majority of those tracks.
Everybody was encouraged and cajoled.
And encouraged, that's right, yeah. And that was the great thing, is that
contribution.
Everyone wanted everybody else to actually engage.
Yeah.
Definitely, democracy did work.
You know what? I don't think we knew any different.
Once you know the rules, they become restrictive. It's really good not to know the rules, or to just ignore them. I still think we do still ignore a lot of rules. I personally am extremely proud of it. I do hear a massive amount of energy. I hear a group of people in balance with each other. I don't hear any mistakes, actually. Maybe no, there's no mistakes in it.